Thank you for being here. As every morning you are joining us to have conversations. I have money. Pesa mfukoni.
Yo.
Today it's not even mfukoni, it's on the table.
Yeah.
You might be wondering what I'm talking about. And,
only 4 years debt.
No, we are not paying out just debt.
No.
it's the manifesto.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we're talking about. Freedom fighter, anti-corruption champion, human rights defender, Gen Z presidential aspirant, Boniface Mwangi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
How are you doing?
Very good.
Kabisa.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
You know, it's been 2 days of another drama, you know, and it was not just about fuel prices. Other things were coming into play.
Yeah.
We're going to talk around a lot of these things. And first of all, Dennis is going to share today's proverb. He'll tell you where we are. But I have to say congratulations. 19 years old, your son. It's not easy to get to that age, but well done.
Santi, I've cried a lot, actually. He went to college on Sunday night.
Oh, wow.
So he moved out.
Oh, my gosh.
Crying, yani. Watch that too. Story for another day.
Emptiness syndrome is upon you.
Yeah, man.
Soon.
He made me a father and then he just disappeared too soon.
Disappeared.
Yeah. Like he has left.
He's a man now. Well done.
Yeah, Santi.
Okay. Dennis?
We are in Gabon. So in Gabon, one thing that stands out is they have a natural nuclear reactor. Just natural.
Wow.
Yeah, so they exploit, and one would say he's the only country in the world that has that facility. But that notwithstanding as well, they are rich in oil, explore that, and use that to push the country's economy. But let's go to the proverb. No matter how long the log stays in water, it will never be a crocodile. How would you interpret it?
Wow. I think no matter what you clad yourself with, like no, the log is in the water. But even if the villager clocks or tries to jirembesha or cover themselves with expensive planes, a bigger state house, a bigger budget, he's still a villager. Mm-hmm. And so if you're a log in the water, you're a log in the land. You'll never be a crocodile. So if you're incompetent, no matter how much money you spend on yourself, and no matter how much you fly around, and no matter how you say how cool I am, you're still incompetent.
I can't add anything. You know that log, when it's in the water or outside, but only kuni. Kuni utawasha tu moto.
And you know, actually, ada kuni moto waka.
Just leave both of you guys. Wow, okay. So the last couple of days, I mean...
and also, kuni shafts. And you've been shafted. Yeah.
Of all people that you... It's good that you can invite humor in some of these things. Yeah. It shows heeling, I think, to an extent.
You know, yesterday was the day we were abducted in Tanzania. A year ago.
Yeah, 19th of May.
Yes.
Yeah. Shows healing, man.
Yeah, a day at a time.
Yeah, a day at a time. You'll get there. Or rather get closer there, right?
True. Yeah.
And then here we are met with a situation that we knew from Friday that the country was going to be at a standstill. And these guys were not bluffing when they said we're going to shut it down because on the 15th, we knew that the prices were astronomical.
Yes.
And it was going to be crazy. And they said, we can't do this. Number one, we can't buy it at that price. Number two, the people that we ferry every day can't afford it because we're going to have to pass the cost to them. Mm-hmm. And we know that our vehicles are going to be empty. We're not going to be able to ferry anybody because people will not be able to afford it. And true to form, it happened on Monday and the country was shut down.
Yeah.
So beyond the cost of fuel, there seems to have been another cost. But how do we connect all of this and say, okay, well, whose fault is it? How can anybody? It's fuel prices are high. And that's the thing, Bonnie, that fuel prices are high.
Yeah.
The situation to get oil or to get fuel to countries is difficult. Can anybody be blamed? And we say at whose cost, at what cost?
So you blame the president. You can't be told there's going to be like a national strike. And by the public transport vehicles, like the matatus are going to go on strike. Mm-hmm. And then you leave the country. That's not what you do. Because the backbone of this country is matatus. The government does not own public transport system. So we are relying on private people to transport people to work, transport goods, transport tourists, and it's the backbone of this nation. Then instead of you addressing that issue, leave the country. And then on Monday, when there's a strike and people are protesting about the fuel price, you send your police to shoot people. Then that evening, you do dog whistling. You say, why are you complaining? Why didn't you complain when Uhuru was president? So you're shifting the blame from you running the country and being responsible for what's happening to other people. So basically, the entire government failed on that particular day.
Yeah.
And it also shows that as a country, we can't rely on matatus alone. The government needs to build light rails, because if the government had a light rail system, at least half of the country would have worked. At least there could have been some form of transportation for people.
Yeah.
But on Monday and Tuesday, the country came to a standstill because private vehicles, because matatus are private vehicles.
Yes, they are.
They were parked at home. Yeah. And I remember, what's unfortunate actually, I remember when I was a young person, Kenya Bus Service, the government had a stake on that. So the government could actually have said, let's transport people with our vehicles. But the government has no vehicles anymore. There's even now bus service. And so basically you have failed because letting the entire country depend on private vehicles is letting ourselves down. And we're going to be held hostage again and again. However, the matatus had every right to strike. The fuel lands at maybe 100 shillings. The rest are levies. There are 7 levies and 2 taxes on every liter of fuel. It does not make sense. So the government is using this money because it's every day. Every day they're collecting billions from fuel levy because they think Kenya consumes about 500 million liters a day. So they're collecting fuel levies every day and they feel they can't live without that.
Yeah.
You know, Bonnie, the strike that happened in the country for those 2 days for me is deeper than just people not being able to go to work.
Yeah.
You know, if you read the papers today, we have those who were killed, who were shot by the police.
Yes.
We have those who lost job, lost their pay for the day.
Yes.
We have the sick who had to walk to hospitals. You know, there are those who are in ambulances who are unable to get to hospitals on time. You look at the cost of all this to human life and suffering in the country, and one asks the question, should the government take blame? Should the government then be able to pay back Kenyans who've lost all this?
So this government will not pay anyone for anything because they're not taking responsibility for what actually happened. There was a lot of shift blaming on blame. Yeah. Shift blaming, I think. Blame shift.
Shifting. Blame shifting.
Blame shifting.
The blame shifting. There was a lot of blame shifting on Monday by Murkomen's press conference. But let's take it back a bit. They knew the strike was coming, and they failed to do anything about it. And then on Monday, the police did what they do all the time and what we complain about. They sent armed police to shoot people, and they shot 4 people, injured 30 others. And they'll say they were looters, but there's no connection between killing people and the people who are looting. Then the other thing that bothers me, that every time they kill people, they say those people are sent by politicians. But the government never arrests the politicians who actually sent those people. Now, let's park that. There are people who depend on kerosene to cook.
Yes.
They can't afford to cook. So you have to worry, you have to think, like, I'm going to buy less food so that I can be able to afford the fuel to cook that food. Then there are people who depend on Mujengo. They couldn't go to work. The entire economy was messed. Then instead of the government coming and saying, actually, how do we move forward? How do we fix this? They start politicizing the issue. And then it took another ethnic angle. They're trying to say that matatus are run by Kikuyus. Because we're saying when Uhuru was president, Kikuyus were not going on strike. This country is big. The people running matatus in Western or Mombasa or Pokot, they're not Kikuyus. So they're trying to tribalize this issue to make it look like it's Kikuyus fighting the president. It's Kenyans, they're not fighting the president. Kenyans are saying, we can't afford to eat. We can't afford to live. We can't afford bus fare. We can't afford to survive in this economy because it's too expensive. And fuel is everything. Because fuel determines if you're going to eat or if you're going to walk to work or if you have no work. Basically. That's it. So if you don't fix the fuel price, the economy is going to collapse.
Indeed.
Yeah.
The deputy president is not in Baku. He's not in Kazakhstan. Deputy president is in is in Kenya. One would imagine
Yeah.
that Kenyans voted in the presidency, which comprises of the president and the deputy president. Should we not have heard a word? Because if anything we did hear, we didn't hear the honking of vehicles on the streets on Monday or Tuesday. We didn't hear this, but we did hear a very loud silence that came from the presidency, which we cannot absolve the deputy president from.
So
why wouldn't we have heard his voice to speak up, or should he not have?
Kindiki is a prefect. He was not elected. He was appointed. And he speaks when the boss says you speak. So he doesn't have the words to say what he can't. He has nothing to say. I think the deputy president in this country is Murkomen. And helped by Sudi and Itumbi. Those are the ones running the country. Itumbi, Sudi, Murkomen. And then the likes of Kindiki are told, go there, say that, go there. So Kindiki has no powers. So that's why he's silent. And also, I think Kindiki is also understanding that when these things goes tribal, he gets affected because it becomes Mount Kenya politics. They're saying, oh, why didn't you strike? So Kindiki has to be very, very careful because in the coming months, people are going to defect. And so Kindiki is wondering, is he going to replace me with someone else from another region in this country? So Kindiki doesn't know what to say. Prefects have to speak when they're told, and when they can makers.
Now, Bonnie, we knew that the strike was coming. Any responsible government would have tried to have these discussions before the fact, because rightfully, if you listen to what many are saying, Kenya lost close to 3 billion shillings on day one, day two. That is around 6 billion shillings because people did not move. Yet a government that depends on these taxes did not do anything. They decided to react after the fact. But you also have to read that with previous statements that were made by President William Ruto while deputy president, when he was talking about fuel prices because of Ukraine war and all the levies that were there. With the president having done the complete opposite in terms of reducing fuel, we saw him increase from 8 to 16%. Should the president take responsibility for where the country finds itself today? That we lost 6 billion shillings because he lied to Kenyans. That Kenyans died because he lied to Kenyans. That we have children who did not go to school because he lied to Kenyans. Can he be removed from this conversation?
No, he cannot be removed. Actually, the backstops of the president, he's the one who actually promised cheaper fuel prices. He promised that as a country, you're going to diversify and have electric vehicles so that you don't rely on fuel.
Indeed, it was said,
And then he promised in his UDA manifesto a rail transit system in the entire Nairobi, which he has not built. So the buck stops at him. You cannot actually have this conversation without actually saying the president is involved in that. And then he got us into a deal called G2G. And we agreed we're going to buy fuel at a flat price. And we agreed we're going to buy that fuel at that price. And there was no other thing about shocks or Ukraine or Iran war, nothing about that. And then, so when the price was low, we were paying much, much higher because we had a deal with we had a deal with people to provide us with fuel. However, when the war came, the price rose. But we're like, when the fuel was cheaper, Kenya was paying higher price than the entire region. And even right now, Kenya is paying higher price for that fuel that comes through Kenya. The one that goes to Uganda, Sudan, passes through this country. Then they tell us, those countries don't have fuel. So these guys trying to maximize money from that. But there's also another possibility that the government of this country, led by Ruto, are charging fuel at a very higher price so they can collect money for campaigning. Because they're saying that between every 30 to 50 bob is going to Ruto's pockets. Because
who's saying, Bonnie?
Yeah?
Who's saying?
It's been alleged by the people who are in the know. Because of Starbucks. He owns Starbucks. And they have more, they're supplying fuel. And he has, I think he's the second or third biggest fuel supply in this country. So at the end of the day, the president is doing business with the government and collecting money so that he can be able to finance his campaign.
Should that be seen as conflict of interest?
It's conflict of interest.
It's been said that anyone who's in public sector should not do business with government. He's
running SHA like personal property. He's running avoidable housing as personal property. He has AMACO insurance. There's so much conflict of interest in everything that is done in this country.
I mean, the jury's out on some of these things in terms of, when you go down the tunnel, who are you going to find at the end of it? But one of the things that came up from these issues over the last couple of days is that it was not just a fuel issue.
Yeah.
It was not just fuel prices going high that Kenyans were out complaining about. What it did is that it gave avenue for people to then vent their frustration. And had it not been, and I don't even know if it's been dealt with, but had it not been, as some fork in the road had not been created, that it was going to then give people an opportunity to vent out about every other thing that they were frustrated about. And one of those things is how people are being treated, at what cost. And you mentioned something about this. And I said this morning that the resilience of Kenyans is playing out here. And that the real heart of Kenyans is playing out, especially when you see that Kenyans go to where an OCS is being held and they say, excuse me, release this man, who for the longest time, one of the CSs has told us that Kenyans hate police and that police should actually be ready to shoot Kenyans if they move outside of a police station.
Yes.
Now, yesterday and the day before, we saw Kenyans go to fight for an OCS and say that because he released people who, for there was no evidence charge that would be leveled against them, let them go. And because of that, he was then detained. Kenyans came out and said, this is the impunity that we are talking about that raises fuel prices, that makes SHA unusable and unworkable, that doesn't ensure that our children can go to school, is now holding an OCS who was just following the law.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about how there seems to be layers and layers of the frustration that, impunity breeds in this country?
So, that OCS, our addition was just innocent. We just caught up in Kenyan politics. So Murkomen has a press conference, says that 300 people arrested. Then he realizes some people are released because there's no offense that was committed. And so the OCS is actually blamed for releasing those people. And I think the government thinks that the more you arrest people, the more you deter them from protesting. Or the more you shoot people, the more you deter them from protesting. But Kenyans are tired. And what's going to happen, beyond the police will stop shooting people, the people will keep on protesting, and the pain they feel will be expressed not only on the ballot, the ballot is very, very far, but by them paralyzing this country. There is a frustration by the presidency and the government that they feel like the Kenyans don't like them. And it is not our business to like the government. It's our business to pay taxes and to be good citizens and to follow the law. But when the government treats us with contempt and then shows us madarao, we are going to fight back. And that fight back, we're going to fight for those people who used to oppress us but are now on our side. The police are seen as the enemy by the Kenyan people. It's true. But when you arrest a police officer who for once did not break the law but was fighting for Kenyans, they're going to fight for that guy. Yesterday, those citizens almost overran Langata Hospital. They said, akona pingu kama kona pingu atolewe. Amekula kama jakula tunapatia chakula. Tunataka kujua ako sawa. They had to bring a doctor outside to tell people that he's safe. And that's where we are at. That citizens have just said, you know what, we can't wait until 2027 to send this government home or demand better. We're going to demand better now. And this anger is very, very timely, because in a month's time, we're going to commemorate the second anniversary of June 25th protest. So next month, another paralysis in the entire country, because the entire country is going to be marking the Mashujaa Day to remember the martyrs we lost 2 years ago. And so this government should be very ready for more strikes. And even next week, actually, if they do not reduce fuel price, the matatus are going to go back on strike, because they don't have passengers right now this week. They're going to go back to work. But people are walking to work. People are waking up at 5 a.m., 4 a.m. to walk to work because they can't afford to pay bus fare. So it's not that we hate this government. It's that this government does not understand the pain Kenyans are going through to survive, to eat, to just pay fees. Capitation is not there. Everything is not working. And then on the flip side, the president is dining, he has banquets, he's flying around, he's not going to his office at Harambee House, he's just on top of a vehicle, and he does not address the cost of living. It's just politics. It's not helping anyone.
Bonnie, the Constitution says the power belongs to the people.
Yes.
and that the people shall exercise that right directly or through donation, or through the ballot. But here we have a situation where Kenyans are speaking and saying, it is expensive for us, man. We can't make it. We can't just do it. Matatu guys are saying, we want to offer this service, but you've made it so difficult for us to even meet our margins, pay our loans and all that. Yet to find a government that is hell-bent at fighting its people. We find a government that says, ukikuja tutapatana and I'm going to deal with you.
Yeah.
And here we are finding Kenyans who are saying, fine, you will come, you will meet us because we understand that we have the power. What would it take for the government to reclaim the trust from Kenyans? What will it take for Kenyans to say the government that is in power today is serving us? Man.
This government is gone. There's nothing they can do now to save themselves. The level of arrogance they've had against us and how they've treated us, they cannot recover from that. You know, people will forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And these guys have made us feel like takataka, that we don't matter. There's no austerity measures. We're saying, no, tighten our belts.
Yeah.
Kenyans have tightened our belts, but the government is not doing that. There's spending at State House. He has spent more money in 2 years than Uhuru spent in 10 years. It doesn't make sense. So Kenyans are not blind to what this man is doing. They're not blind to his actions, his words, his behavior, and then the arrogance of his ministers. I don't even know who the transport minister is.
Davis Churchill.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the guy.
You weren't joking, okay.
I have no idea who he is.
Yeah.
I was like, what does he do? Because you negotiate well in advance, right?
Yeah.
You say, how do we... And then you explain yourself. Let me tell you, if this government respected Kenyans, they would have actually come and explained why fuel is very expensive and why we have to tighten our belts and what they're going to do to ensure that those shocks are not felt by Kenyans alone. But even the government is cutting costs so that even us, if we are eating 2 square meals a day, if you're going to eat one, the government is not taking advantage of you.
Yeah.
They are not doing that. And Kenyans have no problem paying taxes and those levies. But if that money was going towards education, healthcare, we'd actually understand that if Sha was working, if our kids had capitation in school, we would understand. But there's no money in schools. There's no money in healthcare. There's no money in roads. There's no money for anything apart from expenditure, daily recurring expenditure, and paying civil servants. And that's where the problem is, that you are paying so much taxes and you're getting zero delivery from our taxes. Yeah.
Do you think that there's a one-stop solution to this? I know that severally you've spoken about corruption. You've talked about, if you get that nipped, it's beyond the bud now. I think it's all over the place. But if you get that sorted out, then you sort out the problems that the country's dealing with, or is it beyond that?
I think we need to overhaul the entire system. So the guys who create the problem cannot fix it. So this government cannot fix the problem. But you need to fix first, number one is you need corruption has to be dealt with. So seal all leakages, and then you need to ensure that you do an audit of the civil service. It's bloated, inflated, and there's a lot of ghost workers.
Yeah.
Thirdly, you need to stop unnecessary expenditure.
Yeah.
Or travel, meeting in hotels, 3 cars for every minister, escort service.
Yeah.
All these things, bodyguards, hang around. There's so much unnecessary expenditure around individuals. So you need to ensure that if there's a meeting in Kazakhstan, it can be a Zoom meeting.
It can. We've seen presidents do this before.
They do Zoom meetings, right?
Yeah.
If a government doesn't have to go to Naivasha for a retreat, you remove all per diems and travel allowance. Say no, there's no traveling. You're going to work from our ministries, and you're going to have online meetings if you have to have meetings. And then there's a need for people who work for the government to have a clock-in, clock-out system. The way you guys come in and you clock in and you come in and then you clock out. Because people go to the office, hang their jackets, they never work. So there's a very big problem in this country about how we pay people who don't even show up to work. You pay a doctor a salary and they have a clinic
where they're focused
behind the hospital. So they just come hang the jacket. Then when you go in, you're just being sent behind the hospital to go and see the doctor. That's where the problem is.
It's interesting that you say that. If say one of the things that you seal all leakages, you seal all the loopholes, Today we are being told, and this is something that you've mentioned previously, that the Court of Appeal has insisted that the SGR contracts be made public. The details of the 583 billion shilling SGR contract be made public, so that you can know exactly how much this thing cost.
Yes.
You can know who was involved. You can know if money beyond the actual cost of the SGR was spent and who authorized this. So obviously this goes beyond the Ruto government. It goes previously. But would this be the kind of thing that we're talking about when we say seal all the loopholes?
Yes. So let me say this: when Uhuru SGR is actually a big scam.
Yeah.
They built a railway next to another railway. Like they all had to do actually is upgrade the old railway, and that was enough. But they did a scandal where the railway ends up in Uhuru Kenyatta's land in Naivasha. Big scandal. The problem you have here is that everyone is a thief, because when this government came to power, they promised a state capture commission. So the state capture, we're going to investigate, we're going to make expressway deal public and find out who owns expressway. They've never done that. So, and this brings me into about leadership. So there's a big conversation about this coming election and who should work with who. But the truth is, if the young people in this movement work with these politicians, they're going to end up becoming thieves. Because the people who are shouting loudest about Uhuru's kleptocracy, when they came into power, they went quiet because they realized we can get a cut from what those guys stole, because they're going to share with us. Right now, as a movement trying to win the presidency, and you're being told, come, join us, we have money for you guys to campaign, because the moment you join those people, they're going to give you money, but you can never go after what they have stolen in the past. So how do we move forward? Even before the court, this Jaron thing ruling is very good. But there's a Ndungu report on the illegal acquisition of land. Implement that. There's a TGRC report that says who stole what, who violated who, what happened in the last 50 years. Go after those. There's a lot of documents in government that actually exist that you can implement to show that you're serious about corruption and rule of law. But they will not do that because it affects them individually.
You've talked about state capture and the commission that was to be put in place. But here we talk about a body personally that one would say is the weakest link in all this conversation. You know why? Because if you look at the levies and taxes that Kenyans are complaining about today, right? It is because there is a law that passed through Parliament that is now an act that is being implemented by various bodies. That today, if the cost of fuel is to be reduced, that would not be done by the ministry. That is to be done by Parliament by amending the already existing law. Yet in all these 2 days, we've not had anything from the Energy Committee. MPs are silent on this matter. One would hope that with all this, perhaps even the House would have been recalled from recess to address a subject of national interest. Where do we place Parliament in all this? Is it the weakest link in the country today?
Yes, it is the weakest link. The current Parliament is a rubber stamp for the executive. They pass any law he wants. They do anything he wants. So, we have the worst Parliament in the history of this country. And that comes back to the Kenyan people. We must elect better, because if you elect someone who will not fight for you, then you're doomed as a country.
What would you do?
If I was the president?
Yes.
If I was the president, number one, actually, you need to fight. You can do without subsidies for this particular moment. But now, because you're getting money from the IMF, and IMF says, if we loan you money, you can't put subsidies. But if if you had fiscal discipline and reduced unnecessary expenditure, you could actually lower the cost of living for Kenyans. But there's no fiscal discipline. That's what you lack.
I mean,
but let's talk about fiscal discipline. Actually, you've mentioned something about odious debts. And Kenya is servicing debts of money that was borrowed, that never came to our coffers, and the money was stolen or misappropriated. The people stole that money are known people. The money where the money went can be found. We need to get the people who borrowed this money to pay that money. And if that money went into their pockets, we recover that money and pay those debts. Because Tata has actually been talking about odious debt. We need to find out where did this money go, because that money never came to our economy.
Boni, you talk about odious debt. The government is the greatest consumer of information or intelligence.
Yeah.
They know where this money came from. They know where that money ended.
Yes.
They know why that money never came to the country. Because if you look at the PFM Act, it's clear on where money that we borrow needs to end up, But for some weird reason, it is very difficult for action to be taken. Can we trust the very same people? Because here's the thing. We can't excuse President William Ruto from Eurobond that was borrowed and never ended up in the country, because it was part and parcel of that government.
Yes.
He started in the Security Council meeting. He knows everything. So that today we're talking about odious debt and that money not being here, he cannot be excused from it. Is it a question of we know we are part of this and we will protect those who did a disservice to the Republic? And if that's the case, then what guarantees must be there through the offices, EACC, ODPP, to ensure that justice is given? So
Uhuru and Ruto are co-presidents and they're partners in crime. So anything that happened in the last 10 years, in the 10 years of Uhuru's administration, cannot be addressed by Ruto because it's part of that administration. Okay. It will only take change of government for those things to be addressed fully. And then the ODPP and the EACC, all of them are presidential appointee. Benson Triungu and Bishop, I think Odinde are all appointees of this administration. So there's no way they're going to go after their master. So for Ruto to end up in jail, we must ensure that he's removed from power. Then we can prosecute him. And let me tell you, Ruto is going to be the first sitting president to go to jail. But he's going to likely have a cellmate, and it will be Uhuru Kenyatta.
You sound very sure of that. Why?
Because their actions as in the 10 years of Jubilee administration and now the last 3 years of UDA has been amassing wealth at the expense of Kenyans. They've actually turned the government of this country or the tax of this country in private property. For example, let's talk about avoidable housing. We contribute housing levy. Everyone's contributing housing levy. You go take government land, you build using government resources, then you sell that land and you sell those houses to people. There's no transparency where this money goes, where this levy is collected goes, and when the houses are sold, where does the money go to? Like everything about that thing is a scam. SHA is a scam. NHIF was actually working. It had its own defectiveness, it had its own problems, but it was actually working. And they claimed that they removed NHF because of corruption. But it was corruption and there was problems and there was illegal claims or fraudulent claims. Why didn't you go after the criminals instead of destroying NHIF to start a parallel system that benefits your people? The government built a hospital for National Police Service next to Kenyatta Hospital. And that cost, I think, about 5 billion shillings. It has never been opened. Then you take those police and give them a private cover and they go to a private hospital. We'll have an entire hospital for police. It does not make sense. Everything that has been done in this government in the last 3 years has been to benefit individuals. And if it's not true, they can prove me wrong. There's nothing that he has done to benefit Kenyans.
So, and I think what creates a stirring in the spirit of many people is that who is going to bell the cat and how will this be done? This Singapore that everybody keeps talking about, which is just, it's a bit exhausting because you can't use something as an example if you're not going to do the thing that they actually did. The leader who came in and cleaned up this mess didn't listen to all these sideshows. He came in and he was bullish in nature, where they said, okay, you know what? If we're going to follow the rule of law, the people who've had their hands in the cookie jar, lock them up. And it was among some of the first countries in the world that we saw actually jail former presidents, jail former security heads, put people in prison in 2 instances for life. To say that you have been stealing from this country, have a seat here and cool your heels for a minute while we try to fix things. What am I saying? That you cannot take an example from the developed if you're not ready to do what the developed did. So here we are using the example over and over again. Here we are saying things must change. People will go to jail. You've just said it this morning. But who is the one who is going to come and say, shut everything down and let's deal with this rot? You can't build on top of
Garbage.
You can't. And this is what Kenyans are saying. Okay, we hear people saying this all the time, but then who's the one who's going to say enough is enough? I don't care if you're my friend. If you've done wrong, you've done wrong. Cool your heels over here. Who's going to do that? Because everybody's still a little bit too nice.
My name is Boniface Mwangi.
Okay.
I am running for president, and I will jail the thieves. Big or small, all the crooks will end up in jail. And if we are successful in changing the law, we are going to hang all the thieves who have stolen from this country. If you're an economic thief, we shall have public hanging at Uhuru Park. That I assure you. We must talk about that. And I want you, when you host other people who are running for president or any other office, ask them what are they going to do about corruption. And if they are working with those thieves, ask them, how are you going to jail your friend? Because the problem we have is that we talk tough about corruption, but we realize our friends are thieves. So you have to go soft about it. And one of the most touchy issues in this country is corruption, because everyone in that parliament or in that senate, most of them are thieves. They've been given money they've been given bribes to vote for a motion or to acquit a governor or to do many hanky-panky business. So they are very afraid about corruption. They're going to talk about rule of law. What does rule of law say? We must go after big thieves, because this country is very particular about small thieves. If you snatch a phone or if you steal a chicken, we burn you alive.
Right.
But if you steal a lot of money, we elect you to the presidency. And that has to come to an end. And the Kenyan voter must be very careful in this coming election. The more money someone has, the more likely is a thief. Because it is impossible to become a billionaire in this country without being a thief. You haven't invented, you haven't innovated, you haven't come up and you're not entrepreneurial at all, that your entire life you're a DO or a minister in Kanu's government, then you tell us you're a billionaire and you have businesses. You stole that money, because in the 90s, the salary of a member of parliament between 92 and 97, Ruto's salary and Madhakarua's salary was 5,000 a month as a member of parliament. Plus allowance is 20,000. If you're earning 20,000 in a month in the 90s, how do you become a billionaire? How come you're the only billionaire in this country? How come Kogiwa Mwere, Gitobi Manyara, and the likes are not billionaires and in the same parliament with you? Or even Shikuku, who was longer from the 60s, died a pauper in Ushago. Because basically you went into power or you used government office to steal land, to get illegal tenders, to do all manner of things. And the only way you can have a new country is ensuring that any person who was part of KANU does not get into power in post-2027. The only way to fix this country is to forgia water. We say, for once, we have tried replacing 2, 3, 4 people. Let's replace 100%. And then you tell these people that if you dare not deliver, we are going to shut down the country, back in the streets, and remove you. Popular pricing. We must make popular pricing the norm in this country. That if we know that the power belongs to the people, that if we fail to deliver, we don't wait for 5 years. We take to the streets, we march to State House, and we remove you.
Yeah. Bonnie, do you think the public has bought that idea of getting rid of each and every single individual who's put their hand in the cookie jar? Because it still goes back to Kenyans and who they vote for and who they put into these offices. Because unless Mwananchi decides to do things differently, we are not moving anywhere. From where you sit, do we have Kenyans bought the idea that time for change was yesterday? We need to do it now for us to see the change that we seek.
So there's a percentage of Kenyans who want real change, and you can see the Gen Zs in that group of Kenyans. But our parents are still in the tribal cocoons. Our parents are going to say, Rigathi is a Kikuyu leader, or Uhuru Kenyatta, Ruto is a Kalenjin leader, and the likes. That's where the problem is. So if we can be able to convince our parents that for once, don't vote for tribe, vote for values, then that may change. But it's going to take a lot of work. But you have to realize that in 2013, when this government came to power, they banned NGOs that were doing civic education. So we've had about 13 years of no civic education. So we have to now become the civic educators and actually educate Kenyan people about why an MCA matters and why tribe is not important when it comes to voting. Because at the end of the day, When I get sick, I go to the hospital. I don't go look for a Luya or Kikuyu doctor. I go and ask for a doctor. When I get into a matatu, I don't ask the tribe of the matatu conductor or the driver. I just want a matatu.
Yeah.
But when it comes to voting, we are very particular about what tribe is that person. Do they represent my community? But these people don't represent your community. They represent their interests. They just happen to become from your community, because when they steal, they don't steal for you. They steal for themselves. There's no one who's ever stolen money and then they brought it to the community. But this thing about muzi wetu, kabila yetu, is a very big problem. So you have to detribalize the vote for us to change this country.
The economy cannot be ignored. It's very clear that a lot of the things that people complain about, you can have a direct straight line back to the economy. Whether we talk about, not being able to provide proper healthcare, of course, the economic factors where money may have been misappropriated. But everything circles around an economy. Kenya doesn't have a revenue problem. Kenya has an expenditure problem. Kenya has a non-manufactural issue whereby you're not building anything, so you can't sell anything, you can't make a profit. An economy runs on profit making. It's very clear. It's not by the prayers of anybody. It is you create something, you sell it for profit, you make money, you run the economy. That's why MSMEs function.
True. Yeah.
You can't do that if you have a huge amount of debt.
True.
Kenya has a 12.4 trillion shilling debt problem. And pundits have said that if you're not dealing with a debt issue, then you're not looking towards how you're going to solve the problem. Do you agree with that? And if that's the case, how would that be dealt with?
So I agree with that. But if you have to service debt, we can negotiate debt. We can either default and say we cannot afford to pay and say, do what you're going to do. Or we say, let's renegotiate the debt and say, how do we stagger it longer? But for you to be able to do that, you also need to be able to say, I'm going to generate more income for the people. How do you do that? Kenya has the highest expensive power in the region. We need to actually have affordable energy, because if you have enough affordable energy, you have people manufacture, people set up industries. Kenya has we have independent power generators who are charging us even for power not consumed. We have a problem with us transporting the energy to where it's needed. So basically, the economy is surviving on by luck. There's no deliberate effort to ensure that we're creating more jobs by ensuring that there's affordable energy. You made it ease of doing business for people to be able to open business. That 47 counties, how do we get 47 industries in those 47 counties? How do we ensure that pyrethrum, cotton, sisal is back? How do we decide, if sugarcane is not working, how do we legalize marijuana and have hemp? It's hemp, right? Hemp. Yes, sorry, hemp. Hemp is something
it's
else.
hump day. It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday.
How do we ensure that you can have medicinal hemp? Therefore, it can be used for medicine, it can be used for cooking oil, it can be used for so many other things. There's an entire industry to be unlocked. Western could be the hemp belt of this country. If you're selling in Miraa and we have no problem with Miraa, there should not be a problem of doing medicinal marijuana. It's the backbone of Colorado. The entire Colorado state relies on marijuana. We can do that. So basically, there's lack of thinking in how we can actually expand our economy, and that's why we're just relying on overtaxation to service those debts. But we can be able to grow economy by opening up all other industries that are locked. The blue economy. We have fish that we sell at cheaply, or we allow Chinese trawlers to come and just take everything from us. You go to Lake Victoria, our fish, there's no storage. There's so many things that we can address. Nyandarua, there's potatoes, but they can't reach Eldoret. There's the problem.
So, Boni, I want to look at, you want to become president. And you becoming president, then one would look at other leaders that would be in your party to be in parliament, and other like-minded leaders that would help your cause be better. In the political space right now, have you identified individuals that you're willing to work with to rescue the country, in that Kenya, that leadership that you want to be in? Are you looking to work with others?
I am willing to work with others, and I've been in conversation with some people. My only concern is that they feel like we cannot win without the old political guards. That is the problem. They feel like we must be able to work with some people who are very dirty, who are very corrupt, who will just make us as corrupt as them. And I feel like we need to believe in ourselves. I have said this, that there's a path to the presidency, that if we collectively work together, we can get the Gen Z votes, and we can get the 8 million young people who did not vote in the last election. That's enough to get us elected. But these people feel like we need the financial muscle of the old guards who intend to jail when you get into power. And there lies the problem, because that's when you see people going all over the country and they're doing big rallies and all that, there's financial backers who are saying, let me put my money on this guy, because come 2027, when there's change of government, people demand for blood and for people going to jail. But because they funded this man, he'll not jail me. And so that's why I'm staying away from those, if those convoys of people who I think they have an idea that you can fix this country, but your backers are the problem and the people that you must jail when you get into power.
They're saying that if you want to be wealthy, if you want to be rich, go start business, but depend on government to create an environment where it's conducive for you to do this business. That you need to then make sure that the process for doing business makes sense, that somebody can come in as an investor or whatever the case may be, and you create the framework for that. The job of government is in the creation of the laws and to make sure. So you have members of parliament, you have those who sit in your lawmaking bodies, and then that's where the real work is. Should people be focused? I mean, you alluded to that. Talk about your MCA, the very basic level of governance. But the work that needs to be done is right there at Parliament to ensure that this environment then is created. I want to look at the importance of the vote when it comes to who you are actually putting in the position that is going to make and protect the law. And also protect the money, because that's where the rubber meets the road. How important is that attention to be set?
I think a member of parliament is one of the most key positions in this country, because that's where they do legislation, they do oversight. They are like your watchman. They watch the coffers. They're able to. They can even summon any cabinet secretary. They can impeach the president. But Kenyans do not see that. They don't see that role, because we made a mistake by giving members of parliament CDF. Because now they've stopped focusing on legislation. They're dishing out bursaries and building fences in police station and just doing things that they're not supposed to do. The money that is in CDF should go back to government. Let government do education. Let members of parliament just focus on their job, legislation and oversight, and becoming the people's watchdog. So, when I get elected, we shall get rid of CDF. Totally. There should not be CDF. No money going to. It is already legal.
And give it to whom?
The money goes to the government. There's no. You don't need to give politicians money to give handouts. That money is the one that is giving politicians money to give bursaries to goons kids, so that these goons can be called on. They can be on call and being given to border goons. This money, every year, member of parliament has about 50 million shillings. No, 200 million shillings actually. Every year, an MP has 200 million to spend on bursaries. Where is an MP issuing bursaries? That's not their job. So remove that money from there. Number two, remove lower salaries of members of parliament to at least maybe lower it by 30 to 40 or even 50%. Even parliamentarians, cabinet secretaries, and even presidents. Lower that salaries by so that you attract people who are coming to serve the country, not to actually earn that money. Remove bodyguards. Every MP give them a driver and a personal assistant. That's fine. No bodyguards. Take these police officers back to the community, so the entire country can be safe for everyone, not just for a few people. So you remove all these perks. Between independence and 2002, members of parliament never had bodyguards. They never had all these perks, and we had the best parliamentarians even in the 80s when it was a one-party state. There was only KANU in power, but people like Orengo and Anyona were in KANU, and they were fighting the president of KANU in parliament because they had a say and they could talk about these things. Problem is, we are electing people who are sycophants, who are drug dealers, who are murderers, who are rapists, people, wash people, all manner of criminals into parliament, and when they go there, they just get elected just for protection. So when they're called to vote for anything, they vote for anything. You should not have someone who runs as a betting company as a member of parliament. You should not have that. And even ethically, it is very wrong. Because he's going to pass laws that favor him. You should not have people who own hospitals and do all manner of things in parliament because they're going to pass laws that favor them. Just remove the prestige and the perks of parliamentarians, and you're going to attract people who are willing to work for this country into parliament. And I can tell Kenyans that you do not need parliamentarians from one party, either UDA or whatever party it is, even my party, Ukweli Party. Elect people for their values, because values will align in parliament. You don't need a yes parliament or a no parliament. You need a parliament that is actually there to represent the best interest of the people.
That's what you need. Well, the time is running quickly. Are there indicators as to what 2027 will look like, and how do you feel about, I mean, we know what in our heads should be the case, how people should vote, how people should organize themselves. What does it look like if you're able to look into the proverbial crystal ball? What does it look like going into 2027 that Kenyans will then make decisions about?
So it looks very messy because there's a campaign to make the election tribal, not about issues. There's an issue about, that tribe, this tribe, and that's going to inflame this country. There's even a possibility of pre-election violence because if you inflame the country and make it such a high-stakes game, people start being killed or being evicted from their homes. And so you must detribalize the politics, and anyone who is actually doing dog-whistling politics should be called out. So let's be very careful that you don't go back to 2007. Yeah. Because and Hassan Omar spoke yesterday, and they're saying, and it's
unfortunately,
yes. Yeah. So you have to be very careful. You end up with tribal politics. Let's just stick to the issues and stick to what matters for this country. And whatever happens, no one should fight for a politician. If they want to fight, to give them those majembe gloves, naweka mawe, put them in a ring, let them fight each other. We can even fund a fight for Rigathi and Ruto. They square it out. They used to be friends.
Yeah.
Boniface Mwangi, presidential aspirant, has been here with us this morning, looking at some pertinent issues that perhaps need to be focused on more than others. Thank you.
Thank you
for being here this morning. Looking forward to the next. Asante Sana, good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.